Hey, next F people, thought I'd do a quick video about what I think about with services when it comes to subdivisions and the way they impact the price a little bit. They're kind of important. You've got to get them right. They have a big impact on your cost and your outcome, how many lots you can do. But before I go too much further, make sure you smash that like button down there, and if you're not subscribed already, please consider that. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, helps people find us, and hopefully we can help some people with some subdivisions and some questions, and maybe just give people some pointers to think about. So the two main services I think about first is sewage and stormwater. They're really important. They work under gravity. There are exceptions to that rule, but they go down. Sewage is really important. You've got to have a main to connect to that's downhill from where your house is. If it's uphill, it'd be better than making some money, and there are ways to deal with it. For me, I'd rather move on, find a new site. Make sure it runs downhill, make sure it hits a sewer main, make sure you don't have to negotiate with too many people to get it downhill. Stormwater is a bit the same. Some places it will connect to the same system. Launceston, some of the older suburbs are like that. The newer suburbs will have separate stormwater systems, anything from sort of 1950s, 1960s onwards. I'm guessing that's probably pretty similar in a lot of the rest of the world. Some of them, places in New South Wales I've lived, stormwater went into the street then handled it in the stormwater system through the pits. You want to have a plan about where it's going to go. On this site, there was no stormwater available. The stormwater's at the top of the hill, way behind me. So we had to put in stormwater, but we had to also put in stormwater for all the houses above us. Bring that system together and run down under the railway line and right down to an open stormwater drain down the bottom of the hill. That didn't create a lot of cost for me because the council component, so all the stormwater behind us and part of the way down the hill, was covered by council cost. But I had to manage it, I had to have it designed, I had to put it in the ground, I had to basically do everything right up until the point where I sent them a bill for it. So while it hasn't added a lot of cost to our project, it has added quite a lot of time and complexity, particularly going under a rail line with a stormwater pipe. If you have to go through a neighbour's piece of land, you may have to pay that neighbour. If you have to go through public land, you may have to be negotiating with all sorts of different people. It's an issue. Next service I think of that's mandatory, those two are mandatory, you've got to have them in most cases. Yes, if you've got a rural piece of land, you could get away with a septic and putting your stormwater in a sort of out in a field, but I'm talking more residential areas. The next one that's mandatory is you've got to have water coming in, so you've got to connect to the water mains. We've got 4 meters connecting up on the street. We're going to have each of those connections a meter apart, and then we branch them in together. We have our water meters grouped together. It's important you have water available and connected. They won't give you the title until you have a water meter that you can turn on and run water. Interestingly enough, they don't think about power the same way. Power is an optional extra. It's got to be available nearby, especially if you're doing residential land, but it doesn't have to be, strictly speaking, connected. We decided to connect it on this land, so we've provisioned for it. There's conduits in place. We've paid for TAS Networks to provide it right to the boundary. We didn't have to do that to get our subdivision through. We decided to do that so that the land would sell better, so that it would take unknowns away from the purchasers, and just so it would work better. So we have this big shared driveway coming in, and if we hadn't connected the power and run all the conduits the way we wanted it run, the new owners would have been willy-nilly digging up the landscaping, putting in conduit for power, or running it overhead on private poles, or who knows what silliness would have happened. We wanted to control the quality of this development. Part of that is the fact that I'm going to live here in the future. Part of it is the fact that this becomes a prototype for things we do later. We like this kind of development. We want to do more of it, and if we can learn lessons and do this well and point to this as a good place to start and improve on that, that's what we want to do. So we did that. We also ran the conduit for the NBN in at the same time. Fibre to the premises, if you possibly can do it, is by far the best solution. We have that available here in most of Tasmania. Fibre to the premises, it is the best solution you can get. Now, the other thing I should think about, and it's not really a service, is access. Now I think about how people come and go from the lots. Do I have to build a driveway? Do I have to build a road? Roads are expensive, but thinking about access can impact your cost. It's not really a service, but it's a big piece of infrastructure. And the people who do all your other services are often the ones who'll build that access at the same time. The civil contractor takes care of that whole thing, so think about that. Now, the other thing you should probably think about when you're doing these services is not so much where your stuff's coming and going from, but what existing infrastructure is on your piece of land. Most places in the country these days have decent mapping software where you can look these services up, you can look at the zoning, you can look at the planning scheme, all that sort of stuff. If you're in Tassie, it's called iPlan or List Map. If you do searches on those two things, you'll find the details, it'll link you through. You can add layers. The layers have the stormwater, the sewer, the everything. I mean, for example, one of the layers that is very easy to forget is pressurized sewer systems. We have a pressurized sewer main running through part of our land. Now, we've deliberately designed all our house sites to stay away from it, but everyone had to be really aware of it. The last thing you want to do with an excavator is put a hole in something that has pressurized sewage in it. It goes everywhere super quick. So anyway, keep an eye on the services that are there. They can make your access as issues. It makes issues for your access. They can make issues for where your services want to run. But if you can handle where your stormwater, your sewage, and your water's coming from, and you've got power nearby, you're well on your way, and you can work most other things out from there. As I said earlier, smash the like button, subscribe if you're interested in seeing more. There's a playlist with the rest of these videos from this subdivision and others on it. Check them out. If you've got any requests for things for me to cover, I'm more than happy to cover off other thoughts. As we get later in the project and the last of the costs get paid out, and we're just waiting for titles, I will do some more videos around costs on this subdivision so you can use it as a bit of an example.